What makes a great English teacher? I talked to Robbie Kane, an English teacher from Dublin, Ireland. Robbie started his own online English teaching business in March of 2020 when his life and career were dramatically turned upside down because of a little thing known as the COVID-19 pandemic. I think we can all relate to that on some level. Robbie is a smart, talented, motivated English teacher, and he's good at so many things. He gave me so much insight in how to start and grow an online English teaching business. Check it out. There we go. All right. So, Robbie, quick introduction. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, first of all, thank you, Harry, for inviting me on. This is awesome. I'm excited to talk to you. So, my name is Robbie. I'm from Dublin, and my background is in English teaching, TEFL, so teaching English as a foreign language. I've been doing that since 2013. I'm a qualified personal trainer, but that was more of a hobby, kind of like just an interest. Like my bread and butter was teaching English. So I was doing that up until 2020, and then of course something happened, this thing called the pandemic, and yeah, my situation changed pretty drastically then.
Okay. So, how did you get? So you had always been working in coaching.
Yeah, that was always my area. Yeah.
So how did things change for you when the pandemic hit? Can you go into
Yeah,
that?
of course. So here in Ireland, when things started back in March 2020, the schools closed, right? My other qualification, personal training, the gyms closed. So I was all of a sudden, I'm left completely unemployed, and what, wasn't in a great position financially. So that kind of gave me this push to move into the online space, because at the time I saw that as my only option, right? So I guess it was something I always wanted to do, but the pandemic was really the push I needed to actually, all right, now is the time. You've no choice. You just have to go for it now.
I love that answer because it's actually very similar to my situation. Is that this was something I was doing on the side, and
Right.
I lost my job because of the pandemic, and I never expected my business to be what it is when I started. It was just something that I was sort of, you could say, forced into, but as time went on, I got better and better at it, and I discovered how much I loved it.
That's that's awesome, Harry. And it's something I can definitely relate to in terms of, things turning out in kind of an unexpected way. But I get it turned out to be a blessing.
It's fantastic, man. So, what do you think makes you so valuable to your students?
Oh man, okay. To my students. So I've always been confident in my teaching. I felt I was a good teacher. I always had good rapport with my students. Um, but obviously moving into the online space, the dynamic changed a little bit, right? Like, you don't have this classroom dynamic anymore. I was no longer teaching general English, so that was quite a big change. So just to explain a little more, when I moved online, I thought it would be I thought it would be quite easy, to be honest. Okay, I'll make a website, I'll advertise my services a little bit, and it would just be kind of like magic, right? Like, I'm gonna get all these students, and it's gonna be wonderful. Obviously the reality is a little different, because, like I said, I was comfortable with my teaching, but when you moved online, there are all these new skills you need to learn. The kind of skills that as teachers we don't really ever expect we'll need to learn. Things like marketing, creating content, sales. So that was a big transitional process for me. And one of the things one of my mentors told me when I moved online, I was very lucky to find the right people to kind of teach me these skills. But he told me that in online, the most efficient way to work as a teacher, it's not just by selling classes, it's by creating a specific program for a specific group of people. So you can tell these people you're going to help them achieve certain results in a specific time frame. And when you can communicate that effectively to your prospective students, that gives you a great deal of value, because something is much more attractive that promises results in a short time, specific results that speak directly to your situation, that's a lot more valuable to people than, you know, a 6-month general English course that is, you're going to have to learn everything. You know, it's not necessarily going to help you much in your career. So I think that's what made me valuable. And obviously it was quite a transition for me. But the great thing was when I started working with people in that way, helping them prepare for job interviews, you know, communicate more confidently in their meetings at work, and they started getting good results, they would, you know, they would share reviews, they would share testimonials. So that way, when I was marketing my course, you know, the perceived value, it goes up quite a lot, because now you have this proof, which is, by the way, it's such an important element if you're going to go independent online, because I think that's the number one thing we have to overcome as, you know, people working independently online. It's the skepticism, because, you know, like there's so much bad information out there, and unfortunately charlatans, and, you know, so if we have that proof, those client successes, that's so important. So kind of a long answer to the question, but just in a nutshell, it was this program I developed that helped a specific group of people, which for me was Brazilian professionals, get results which were advancing in their career, getting new jobs, being more confident at work.
Do you find that your switch to online, you could deliver those results more effectively, or what was that like?
Oh, totally. So, you know, at the start of the pandemic, before I kind of was fortunate enough to find the coaches to give me that roadmap, you know, I was doing general classes. And the thing with general English classes is, you know, there's people tell you, oh, you know, I want to be more fluent, or but when it's so general, it's really hard to get people those specific, tangible results. When you have that specific program where all your material, all your lessons are focused to get someone where they want to be as quickly as possible, it's a lot easier, right, to help people in that way. I'm not saying like it didn't happen overnight. You know, the program, it took me like 6 months of trial and error and kind of refining it, and, you know, learning from the clients I worked with, what worked, what didn't work, what needed to be improved. But eventually it got to this point where I knew if someone decided to work with me, if they invested, they had a great chance, if they took action on reaching their goals and being really satisfied with the program.
Of course, specific results that you can communicate and demonstrate for your students. I've gotten that answer a lot.
That's it, man. And you summed it up much better than I did. So thank you.
Well, and you mentioned trust too, which also is a common answer I get from teachers like you. And I mean, obviously, as from like, you know, being able to give trust, you can explain why it's so important. But how do you create trust? We know that creating trust is important, but it's so hard to get it, and it can be taken away so easily. And I know that's another broad question, and you can be as broad as you like, but what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you create trust between you and your students? Can it be created quickly? Can it be created easily? I mean, probably not, but what are your thoughts?
Wow. I mean, it's a great question. I think there are kind of two parts to that, I guess, because, you know, when you move online independent, someone needs to trust you before they decide to invest, right? Before they decide to work with you. Because when you're selling a program, they're not paying per class, they're paying for the entire program up front. So for someone to make that commitment,
Right.
there needs to be a lot of trust. So the only way you can create that trust and build that trust is through sharing value in your content. But, you know, even if we think of ourselves, right? Like, I know we've both invested in working with coaches in the past, but it's not always an easy decision, right? There are certain things we look for. So what I think is the most important thing, you know, from this marketing perspective, if you're selling a coaching service, I think you need to make sure people can see that whatever you're promising, right? So for example, if my promise is you're going to be able to express yourself more confidently in English, you're going to perform better in job interviews, and you're going to open up more career opportunities, they're all great promises. But if I don't have proof to back up those promises, they don't mean anything on the internet, right? So I always say, whatever your promise is, or your promises are, you need to have enough proof to back them up, right? And an analogy I use with my clients now is, think about a courtroom, right? If you were making a claim in court, what amount of proof would you need to convince a fair-minded jury that whatever your claim is true? And that's how I advise my clients to go about their marketing, right? So when you're promoting your program, when you're talking about your services, don't just give the promises, give the proof to back it up. Client successes, client results, testimonials.
It's a great way of thinking about it. And it kind of segues into my next question. What do you think, or what do you wish more teachers knew about what their students really need?
About what their students really need. Wow. Okay. I think that's a wonderful question, and yeah, it's definitely related to what we were talking about. So, um, like I said, one of the best pieces of advice I received was focus on a specific group of people you want to help, right? And if you want to, resonate with those people, you need to understand them, and most importantly, you need to understand what their pain points are. And the only way you can really, if you don't come from that group yourself, the only way you can really learn about that is by asking them, being curious and asking them questions. So what is the biggest challenge you're facing right now with your English? Which situations do you need to speak English? How do you feel when you need to speak up in these moments? And by asking these questions, you can learn such valuable information about the people you want to work with. And then you can use that information and put it out in your content, in your advertisements. So, you resonate with them, you get their attention, and they feel like, this person, he or she understands me, he or she gets it. And like a misconception I think a lot of teachers have when they first hear this advice is like, oh no, I don't want to talk about problems and pain points. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. And, of course I get it. We don't want to make people feel bad, but that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it so you can show you understand someone. And when you can show you understand someone, you can demonstrate empathy, right? And that's going to open people up to the possibility of working with you.
What are some of the most common pain points you hear from students who sign up for your services?
Right. So obviously at the moment I'm working with teachers, but
Right.
last year when I was working with students, the pain points, they were really always the same 3 or 4, right? And that was awesome because I knew, okay, these are the pain points I can talk about in my content. So, I know I can resonate with these people. So a big one is getting nervous and going blank in important moments, so they
Yeah.
can't think of the right words to say, right? So maybe they have the vocabulary, but they just feel they lose their confidence and they go blank in those important moments. So that was a big one. Another one was being afraid that their colleagues won't understand them because of their accent, right? And of course, this comes down to pronunciation, because you and I know there's nothing wrong with having an accent, right? I have an accent, right? So everyone has an accent, right? And an accent only becomes an issue if it prevents people from understanding you, right? And that comes down to your pronunciation. So that was another pain point. Another common one was, when they need to write emails. So a lot of people I spoke to, a lot of the students I worked with, are like, Robbie, I sit there for an hour rereading the email, rereading it, drafting it again. And like, I just feel so anxious that someone's going to read it and it's going to leave a bad impression of me because of my English. So that was another big one too. So pretty much the people, when you speak to, the same group of people, you're going to hear the same pain points again and again and again.
Well,
Which makes our job a lot easier, right?
certainly that's why I find that question a very interesting one to ask, because you do see a lot of the patterns often when you ask the right questions. And it's like I'm a native English speaker and I still have anxiety over writing emails. That's what I tell my students. It's like it's not easy to be somebody who's a foreign speaker.
And Harry, that's an amazing example, because just you sharing that with your students, or with prospective students, that's going to build so much trust, because you understand their pain and you can show that empathy. Hey, look, I know, because that happens to me too. And that's a really, really good thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And then, so what are your thoughts about the teaching industry in general? Do you think more teachers should branch off on their own or be independent, or do you think it's better that, most teachers work within the system?
Okay, that's okay. It's an excellent question, and I'd love to just give it like a really easy answer, like yes, of course. But it's a little bit more complicated. So, I'd be lying if I said, going independent, it's just upward trajectory of success and it's all milk, honey, rainbows and chocolate. Like it is a bumpy road. And like I said, there is a learning curve. So if, for example, you just come from a teaching background like I did, and you're in this whole new world, you will realize pretty quickly that there are other skills that are going to help determine your success, marketing and sales being two very big ones. So if you're okay with that and you're comfortable becoming a learner, again, right, because as teachers, we're the expert, right? So when we become teacher entrepreneurs, we have to make that shift from expert to learner again, because we need to learn these new skills. If you're okay with that and you find the right coaches to teach you, and you're okay with pushing outside your comfort zone just a little bit and taking action, then do it. It is the most rewarding, best thing you can do. I mean, you can take your future into your own hands. And, honestly, I'm so thankful that I can just pick up my laptop now and go. And like I said, it wasn't smooth sailing getting to that point. There were a lot of losses, a lot of ups and downs, but it's been the most rewarding thing I ever did. And even, before the pandemic, it was always a concern I had. Even my parents used to say it years ago. They're like, would you not get a secure job, right? Because we know TEFL, we know these online companies, we know these schools, they do take advantage of teachers, they do underpay, they do overwork, and there's very little job security, at least here in my country. That was the case. And so to actually be able to then take that into your own hands by leveling up in these skills is the best thing I've ever done. But just, if you do it, don't be expecting magic. Like, take action, push outside the comfort zone, invest in coaches. Remember, make sure their proof supports their promises, so you get good coaches, and there's no reason why you won't be successful.
Yeah, I love that answer because it speaks to truths about the risks and the rewards with going off on your own. And not everybody's ready, but I still think it can be a very important decision to make for people on an individual level. And I also am interested in perhaps your journey, because having come from, you said you taught in the TEFL, like you come from like a TEFL background, but what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so after college, I did the TEFL cert. So it's the 5-week course in teaching English as a foreign language. I got a job pretty much straight away. And after the first few months, again, like, there's a learning curve. After that, I just kind of fell in love with it. It was really cool meeting people from all over the world and super rewarding. And I really, really liked it, despite the pitfalls of the industry, despite, I was
Yeah.
never particularly wealthy in working there. It was a job I really enjoyed, and I did it for most of my 20s. And I look back and I feel really, really thankful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it just seems so common now when you look around and you look at traditional learning institutions, whether it's public schooling or anything. A lot of these
Mm,
places are very stuck in the old ways of doing things,
yeah.
and they're unable to adapt and they're unable to change with the times. But when you teach within these organizations and these institutions, you have to go along to get along. Even if you can identify real ways we can make a bigger impact, you have a harder time changing things from within the system. Did you find that to be true?
Yeah, totally. But even like TEFL, the way language is taught in TEFL and the way you learn how to teach it is still light years ahead of the way the public schools
Yeah.
teach it. Because I remember learning French, back in school, and it was like it was like the Stone Age. You'd sit there and you'd learn how to conjugate a verb, but you wouldn't know how to ask for directions, or you wouldn't know how to order a coffee. You just know what the verb to be is, and it's repetition. At least in TEFL, you can teach people functional language. You can work on their confidence. You can tell them how to communicate in certain situations. But then, yeah, I think these big industries, they can be a little bit slow to keep up with the latest developments and trends. But yeah.
Yeah. And what have you noticed about the impact you make versus working within the system versus going off on your own? How has that been different?
Well, I think the biggest difference is it's more rewarding now, because, like, if you're working with a specific group and you develop a program, it's like it's your program, and like I mentioned earlier, everything is super focused to help people get specific results. So when you work closely with people in that way, and then they come back to you a few weeks later and they're like, Robbie, I did the job interview. I just got this email. They offered me the job. They asked that question. We prepared. Like, that is the best thing ever. And I think when you're sitting in like a school in a TEFL classroom and, you know, you're looking at the book, whatever it is, Headway or New English File, like, it's, you don't really have that same experience. You know, you get compliments from students and stuff, but not on that same level. And I think it's more rewarding outside the system. But of course, you can take what you've learned within the system and bring it outside with you and add it to your own stuff and refine it and polish it and improve it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, that's about the. Oh, and I have one more question.
Sure.
So tell me about, and again, we've touched on this in many different ways, but I guess if you had to summarize, and we've touched on this already, but I guess we'll be expanding on it. But if you had to summarize the most challenging thing about what you do now, what would you say? What has been
Most
the biggest
challenging
challenge for you?
thing,
Yeah.
what I do now. That's an awesome question. So there are challenges for sure. And I think the most challenging thing is, so when people work with me now, like I said, I work with teachers. One of the first things we talk about is mindset. And sometimes when you've been a teacher for a long time and you're in that position of expert, you know, you're always the person people come to with questions, they ask you for advice, they look up to you. And then you move into this teacher entrepreneur role. You need to go back to being a learner. And to do that, you kind of need to open yourself back up, and you have to become okay with not being that good at certain things. Like the first time I tried to do marketing, I sucked, you know, but that was okay, because to get good, you have to start. And when you start doing anything, you're not going to be particularly good. That's just how the universe works. So communicating that now to my clients, you know, it's okay. You're going to be a learner again, and it's okay to be bad at the start, but the only way you get better is by taking action and doing repetitions. I think that's the biggest challenge, because some people, it takes them a little bit longer for that message to get through. So trying to find the most effective way and delicate way to kind of communicate that to the people I work with, I think is the number one challenge. Because if you get it right up here, if you get your mindset right, like I said, all it takes then is take action, learn from the people who have done it, and be prepared to go a bit outside of your comfort zone, and you will. You know, it's inevitable. You know, you will have success, but it all starts up here.
Yeah, I mean, I tell my students all the time that we learn more from making mistakes than we
Yeah,
do
yeah,
from actually getting it right. So I
totally.
encourage mistakes. And
I mean,
this is especially true because my focus is on South Korea. My students are all
mm,
South Korean, which is, as a society and a culture, really emphasizes perfection, like this relentless
mm,
pursuit of perfection. And as a byproduct of that, they feel very anxious about making mistakes.
yeah,
So it's like a breath of fresh air sometimes, and they don't always. It takes a while for it to break through.
yeah,
I tell them, hey, mistakes are good. Mistakes means
yeah,
you're learning, and that's why we
yes,
learn. That's why we make mistakes, is so we can learn. And it seems like it's just like it doesn't even compute. But at the
yeah,
same time, to piggyback off what you said, I have to tell myself that too. I mean,
yeah,
I try something for the first time, and I feel paranoid about getting it wrong because it's public, and you
yeah,
are putting stuff out into the world, and so you feel like all your failures are going to be public, and that's just
yeah.
be debilitating. But you have to accept those things to welcome improvement into your life.
Uh, Wow. I mean, I totally get it, because it was the same. It was the same for me. And I guess it's just, you know, the only way to get better is by taking action. And, you know, nobody wants to be bad at something, but like the only way you get better is by starting. So just one of my mentors always says, be okay with being okay, you know, because that's the only way you're going to get better. And I think that's really, really good uh, advice, you know. And yeah, you know, sometimes if you want to get better and you want to get confident, you need to have a bit of courage first. I think the courage comes before the confidence.
It's great, man. I love that answer. Now, is 100% of your focus on teaching other teachers, or do you still take on students who are learning English?
Yeah, right now there was a bit of a transitional period, and towards the end of last year, it became pretty like I developed a curriculum that other teachers who wanted to go independent could use. So it
I
was like
saw that.
ready-made
Yeah.
curriculum. So I started, marketing that to teachers, and the feedback was good. And I started having conversations with more teachers. And then I realized, okay, I actually have more passion now for helping teachers than I do for helping students. So I really believe whatever excites you the most, I think that's where you should gravitate towards. So there was a transitional period when I finished working with my students and then went fully into working with teachers. So since January of this year, I'm just 100% my focus is on helping teachers make that switch so they can have that freedom, they can become teacher entrepreneurs.
Can you share some of your plans for it, like your long-term vision, or are you just very focused on the day-to-day?
Wow. Okay. Long term vision. Like, I would love to look back and say I have helped hundreds of teachers now have complete independence. So they're no longer relying on this industry that doesn't pay them what they deserve. And there's always that air of uncertainty about it. And they've taken their future and they've taken their lives into their own hands and they're helping their students to the best of their ability. Like, if I could look back and say I did that, that would, I think I'd sleep well every night for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So it's just like the bigger impact you make, the more you feel fulfilled.
Yeah, that's for sure, and like, yeah, totally. That's it.
Now, how ambitious are you? You want to create like video content? You want to have a booming YouTube channel, or is it really just about the teachers right now?
I mean, I don't care about likes and views and that kind of stuff in so much as unless it helps me reach more teachers who may need help. So that's just kind of a means, like, to reach as many people as possible and to build that trust. Hopefully, so people will work with me who want, who want to make that transition, and I can help them. So right now I'm doing coaching. I'm working with Bowie Strategy, and I also have digital products like my curriculum, to help teachers make that transition so they don't have to worry about spending, hours and hours putting their program together. So there's something there that they can offer their students immediately. So I think I'm going to create more products like that. And I love coaching, to be honest. When I'm not coaching, I don't have the same level of fulfillment. So, I definitely going to continue doing coaching too.
Well, I can tell you, I think you're solving a huge need with the curriculum aspect because I can tell you that that project is never done. There's always more curriculum to create. I feel like there's always more I have to develop and more things I could do for my students. So I may have to invest in that the very next thing I do.
Hey, for sure, man. Let me know. I'll give you a discount. And yeah, anybody watching this, I'll give the discount to you so you can pass it on to them, and they can
Wonderful.
check.
All right, man. Well, that's all the questions I had for now. Do you want to wrap up with any closing thoughts?
Oh man, just Harry, thank you for having me. This conversation was a lot of fun, and I feel very fortunate that I'm actually in a position now where I can perhaps share some things I've learned that might help other people on that same journey. And just, yeah, if you're kind of on the fence right now, like I said, if you're prepared to take action, you're ready to move a bit outside your comfort zone, and you're open to learning new things, it will be the best thing you ever did.
Well, that's wonderful, man. Thank you so much for your time and talking with me today. This is a fun conversation, and I appreciate it so much.
Oh man, likewise.
All
Thank
right,
you, Harry.
Robert. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Take care, brother.
Thank you.
All right, some key takeaways I got from my conversation with Robbie. The first, starting a business is never what you think it is. I think we all get this misguided idea that starting a business is a pretty straightforward and linear process, right? Like, you start a website, you get a few clients, you get your curriculum together, create some generic marketing material and publish it, and voila, you're off. But it's never that simple. Robbie gave me a lot of good insight in how to actually build all the skills you need to actually maintain and grow a successful online English teaching business. The other big thing I took away from that conversation was the importance of social proof, right? And think about it from your students' perspectives. There's so much bad information out there. How do they know that you're good information? And social proof is a good way to actually demonstrate the fact that you're not a charlatan. You're not one of the many people out there who don't know what they're doing.
Go to great lengths, go to whatever lengths you can to create that social proof. It's going to be one of the most important things you're assessed by when students are evaluating you as a potential teacher. And to sort of expand on that point, Robbie talks a lot about trust. I think he's great. I think he's one of the most valuable teachers out there because he cares so much about creating trust between him and his students. And we don't hear that talked about very often when it comes to being a business owner, being an online English teacher, really doing anything. It's just how important it is to create trust between you and the people that you're helping. Trust takes a long time to build up. It can be taken away very quickly. People who don't put enough importance on this and emphasis on this, the trust between them and their students or their clients or their customers or whoever it is, those people don't go very far because they really neglect a key area of creating an online English teaching business. Also, I think Robbie's very successful because Robbie, at his core, is just curious. Robbie's always asking questions. He's always getting information, good information, from the people he talks to, from people who actually have specific pain points, right? So he's always asking questions. He's always getting that valuable intel, as he put it. And the reason this intel is so valuable is because when you really understand the needs of your students, that is information that goes in your marketing material, it goes in your sales calls, it goes in your strategy sessions, whatever you want to call it. But as long as you're staying curious, as long as you're asking questions, as long as you don't make assumptions, you can get the most valuable information you need and to know how to develop your content, develop your curriculum, develop your business, and do the most important thing, which is solve your students' problems, make their lives better, help them grow as a person, help them achieve their goals. All right, that's all for me. To get your hands on that curriculum at a discounted price, you can go to this link down below in the description. My name is Harry. I'm from Harry's English Academy. Thank you so much for watching.